Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. And of course, recently I've got these two new leopard geckos, and for today's title of the thumbnail, so here we have some just little small decorations we're going to be using for leopard gecko enclosure. So here we have some hides. Here we also have an Exoterra electric thermometer. We have a hydrometer there, some fake plants, a water dish, and another hide. And here's our bulb. And these are what we're going to be using to make your setup today. And I appreciate for you guys to watch until the end. So here we have a 3-foot tank, and here we're going to be making our new leopard gecko setup. So with leopard geckos, of course, they are ground dwelling reptiles, which means they like to spend most of the time on the ground and hiding in hides and underneath rocks. Of course, in the wild they live in the desert and they need to have a lot of places to hide. So with leopard geckos, the best thing to do is that you guys should have pretty decent amount of hides in your enclosure, as they like to sleep during the day and they're nocturnal at night, so which means they sleep during the day and they come out at night time to eat and to feed. And also the good thing that I like about leopard geckos is that they don't really require a lot of lighting, so overall they are pretty good reptiles. Of course, for beginner pets, I would really recommend leopard geckos for any starter people that are considering into getting the reptile hobby, and they're overall just pretty easy to look after and make your setup. Things you can also add in the tank would be like moist hides. Of course, for when leopard geckos shed their skin, they will also be able to go into their hides through the opening on the top. You can also mist inside the hide. Good things for also having misted shedding boxes is that they need to have a lot of humidity inside. So here there's also an opening for the top of the humid hide, and things you can also add is paper towel or just simple things like sphagnum moss and like a soil mix. But I'd really recommend just using kitchen towel and misting it down. And don't forget, in your guys' leopard geckos enclosures, you of course need the water dish. You can place it anywhere in the tank. I'm just placing here close to the second hide, so if the gecko comes out, the gecko can then go over and have a sip of water or bathe inside for a bit. And with your leopard gecko tank, of course, I don't have a lot of stuff here, and the good thing with leopard gecko tanks is that you can add a few things, but try not to overcrowd the tank, because with leopard geckos it could be having a hard time to find places to hide in, or you also just have trouble maybe finding the gecko if you need to take it out for emergency. So with me, I just have a few things inside its enclosure. If you want, you guys can also add a lot of more like sticks and plants inside. It's also just better because then it feels like you're in the wild with a lot of more places to hide in and things to go and do. And here I've also just added a small little fake plant. You can really use any kind of plants, to be honest. I'm just using the Exoterra fake plants as they look pretty class in setups, and you can also just fit them into any kind of like place and area. So here I wanted to place it behind the hide, and the most important thing to do with leopard geckos and maybe most ground dwelling reptiles is that you guys need a warm hide. And what a warm hide is that it's a hide that has like a heat mat inside it, and this is really important because reptiles are cold-blooded creatures and they require heating. Not necessarily like lighting and stuff, but you can just add small heat mats in, like I have one here. So right now I've just placed the heat mat underneath this hide here, so that will be my warm hide for my leopard gecko to go into in case it's feeling cold. And the heat mat that I'm using is around 8 to 10 watts. It's pretty good for the tank, so it's not too hot, but once it's on for all the time, then the heat will go from inside the mat into the enclosure and through the substrate, so it'll create warmth in the enclosure. So the substrate that I'm using for my Leopard Gecko tank is just Habitat Advanced Reptile Bedding. It's pretty soft and it's pretty loose substrate. A lot of people also use it for corn snakes or snakes in general. It's just an overall good substrate for leopard geckos and reptiles because it's loose, and for me I'd recommend it better than using coconut fiber, because coconut fiber, if you just miss the substrate, it gets stuck everywhere, like if your gecko is walking around and then maybe it gets stuck onto the gecko's foot, or if it's shedding the skin and the bedding gets stuck onto the gecko's skin, then that's not good. So I'd really recommend this substrate for my leopard gecko. As you can see, it's pretty fine and this is best for them. So here's just my leopard gecko setup. My female isn't full grown yet. I think she's close to sub-adult, so she's a small leopard gecko. There's some also leopard gecko morphs that get really big, or I've seen some leopard geckos online that grow to around 30 centimeters, so it's pretty big for a leopard gecko. And as you can see in the tank is that I have the substrate here, which is a really fine substrate I was just talking about, and then I have a warm hide here, some fake plants, my humid hide behind the hide there, then I have a water dish and another hide here for my female to go inside, and here's a water dish. And just a quick thing to make a note is that if you guys have a water dish inside your gecko tank, and try to have one that's smaller, because if you have a really big water bowl and you fill it up a lot or too much and your gecko goes inside it, like if your water bowl is a lot bigger compared to your gecko and your gecko goes inside it, the gecko can also drown. So just one thing to make sure is that if you guys have a small like water dish, just add some water inside and then you guys can just fill it up, but not to the top. So some things you guys can also add into your leopard gecko tank can also be stuff like feeding bowls. Feeding bowls are pretty handy when you're feeding your gecko, as you put your food inside here and you add your calcium, of course. And once your food is inside the feeding bowl, you guys can just place it down into your guys' enclosure, roughly anywhere. You guys can just think of a space that looks nice in your tank for your gecko's feeding bowl. And once you guys are feeding your geckos, all you have to do is pop your crickets inside it or your mealworms, and then add your calcium powder, and you guys can just leave it the feeding bowl in your tank and watch your gecko eat. But if it doesn't eat all the food and there's still insects inside the enclosure, and if there are multiple crickets or insects inside there, they could also harm your gecko. So important thing to do is to take your leftover food out of the tank and then take out your feeding bowl. So guys, here's my gorgeous leopard gecko. Here she is. I just put her into a little container as I was making the video, and she's really gorgeous, and I'm going to be adding her into her enclosure. So here she is, my gorgeous leopard gecko, and this is her final setup. Pretty simple setup. Here's a 3-foot tank, and then it's a wooden vivarium. Then there's a substrate, a water dish, a hide here, another feeding bowl here, some fake plants, the warm hide, and here's your molting container or molting hide. Now I'm just gonna slightly take her out so she can go out herself. As you can see, she'll start to explore her tank. And although these are my new leopard geckos, what I'm doing is that once you guys get a new kind of reptile, you guys should try to not hold them for the first 1 week or 2 weeks, because if you guys hold them once you guys get your new animal, this can really stress your reptile out, and that's not what you guys would want your gecko to be stressed out from moving from a whole new shop to your guys' home. So I'll just let my gecko roam around the tank. I'd feed her maybe 1 once every day or every second day, and overall it's pretty simple. And with my leopard gecko, it's pretty cool. So that she comes up to the tank in the morning and she just stares at me. So to be honest with you guys, is that overall leopard geckos, they're pretty chill animals and chill pets to keep. They don't really require a lot of special kind of things in your tank or a lot of special kind of electricity like lighting and stuff. They really just need a decent enclosure with some hides, substrate. You guys can also just use any kind of substrate you want. For me, I think that this substrate here is perfect for my leopard gecko, and it's the same one that I got from in the shop. And I hope you guys enjoyed today's video on making the leopard gecko setup. I thought this was pretty cool. It's also pretty simple for any of you guys who are starting to get leopard geckos, or if you guys are just wondering on how to set up your enclosure. This can also just be a simple way on how to do it. So of course, those of you guys who are new here watching this video for the first time, I hope for you guys to stay until the end and watch a full video. I'm making content about reptiles, care videos, feeding videos, and overall I like to share my content with you guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Subscribe.